Start recording. Cool. Very good morning, everyone. Thursday, 28th of May, 8:30. So pre-London Open for all of us. Let's get cooking straight away. I hope you're well. Yesterday was a good day, annoying day nevertheless. Looking at EU, we could pretty much forecast where that was going from these highs. Hopefully my chart's going to load to the left ever so slightly, but EU dropped from here. Nevertheless, where are we in the here and now? We took a trade on GU as well. That hit profit this morning while we're all sleeping. Anyhow, the DXY, as we always talk about, it's a bit of the catalyst. Now, the confusing part of the DXY, I talk about it over and over and over again, but I think it's very, very, very relevant. Now, the DXY is pretty much in a position where we don't really want it to be, because when we start to mix the fundamentals in with the technicals, it straight away it's providing a bit of conflicts. Now we're up at that weekly 50 MA, weekly higher time frame order block, so we are expecting a move to the downside on the DXY. Nevertheless, we can see where price could want to gravitate towards further within that higher time frame weekly order block because we're not going to be trading from this order block. All that order block is doing is providing us with some information on where the liquidity lies. It's then our job to refine that area further and further down through daily 4 hour and 15. So where we are currently, we've got this market range where if you remember yesterday on the call, I was debating whether we are ranging or can we start to play with higher time frame points of interest like what we had yesterday. And it worked out quite nicely. But the reason why I believe it worked out quite nicely is because we were at the lows of the range and it was quite easy to manipulate that area. However, where we are now getting the signs of that perhaps we are indeed within that range. But with that said, does that mean we should be taking cross pair reversal positions, i.e., looking at EU? Should we now start to long EU? Should we now start to long GU? Should we now start to long AU and take a short position on US dollar CAD? I don't believe so. That's just my personal opinion. And with that said, I believe the better plays are, again, just my opinion, to wait for a price to return to those better areas in terms of the crosspair shorts in line with, let's say, AU would be the best bias to actually guide us to say, oh, hey, chaps and ladies and gents, rather, let's have a look at just trading in line with the higher time frame directional bias. What that will mean then is, of course, the DXY should drop down back into these areas. However, based on the overall direction and picture, what we have on the DXY, forget if we are DXY bullish, forget that for a moment. We understand that if price is indeed looking to break out of this range, or even if it's just to come back to the lows of that range, that DXY weakness is going to provide us with, let's say, in inverted commas, strength across those cross pairs, where we would actually like to take a better looking short position down based on the directional play that we have based on the setup that has now, in my opinion, it actually has just developed even better. So it's not too much of a sad face that we have missed the drop, let's say. On EU, we did our best to capture it. Personally, I was stopped out break even. Um, but actually, price has just developed, in my opinion, to a better standard. Because if you think for good example, yesterday I took a 1 minute break of structure from this area. Price came back in and I took the short, or rather to the left slightly. I can't remember where it was, but it's somewhere you'll find it. But nevertheless, now we have full confirmation with that. We have price, of course, moving on that 4 hour time frame. The 4 hour 50 EMA is a great distance above, which then allows us to forecast price would want to gravitate up towards the 4 hour 50 EMA, breach it ever so slightly into the liquidity that we've got already up here in those highs refined area. And then we'll be looking for the short to trade alongside the 4 hour 50 EMA, as well as that. Hopefully, that daily 50 EMA will start coming down as well, support the position to the downside. So initially, look, waking up this morning, I thought, well, I'm not going to really bother trading as a result of what the DXY was showing me. But actually, I think it's it's quite good. So we'll take a deeper look into that now. So that's the thought process on the DXY. Regardless of us being in the highs of the range, I think the confusion that surrounds that will be mitigated by the fact that I'm not going to be trading the reversals on the cross pairs anyway. I'm just going to wait to see if the DXY will indeed pull back down to perhaps some of these areas before looking to take the DXY, let's say, long, and then just take those cross pairs short. So actually, I think it's a decent looking chart, regardless of how we want to play it. And then with that said, look, I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen, but it says dollar rises on renewed US Iran tensions. So fine, that's fine on the fundamental aspect, but the technicals actually support that anyway. So let's go and have a look to see what we have across the crossbar. So I think that makes, well, I'd rather, not that I think, I hope that makes sense. Um, but the chart breakdowns should speak for themselves now. So what we had yesterday, and pretty much what we have similarly today, as opposed to using an older 4 hour order block now on EU, we've just got a new one. It's available. It hasn't been mitigated. I was just looking at this area here to see if this candle had indeed tapped into that 4 hour order block, but I don't believe it has. But nevertheless, we're looking to refine those areas down anyway and trade from our 15-minute points of interest. Why I like EU, let's say even compared with GU, is that we still have room to that weekly 50 MA based on this week's current candle. So the thought process being, if we had indeed tapped into that weekly 50 MA, the thought process could have then started to be that, well, taking that short position could be slightly more riskier as a result of them price wanting to reject that weekly 50 MA to the upside. And any long position, excuse me, any immediate short positions could be crushed a bit prematurely because price may would then want to gravitate into the daily 50 MA before then having its rejection to the downside. So I think at the moment EU is looking quite good. And as you can see, price is on the way back. That's as a result of that DXY melting back down into the range. And then hopefully the DXY will continue to melt, and then that will push EU back up into a nice probable area. So two areas here. So in that case, I can't be as aggressive as I would have liked to have been in comparison, let's say, with yesterday, because yesterday there really was only one area. We were up at these highs and we could cover those highs quite sufficiently. However, with that said, today, two 15-minute points of interest. Of course, the higher point of interest is much better based on what you're able to cover with your stop loss placement. However, I'm not going to discredit this 15-minute order block. If I get my entry criteria from there, then absolutely I will be looking to take that position, probably going to split my risk and understand that I can take a loss on this. However, save myself a couple of bullets for remaining positions for the day. So that will be a potential short position. And as I said, for me, it's quite easy today to get to the charts and say, well, I'm not going to be taking longs. It's just going to be shorts only. We're coming out of that higher time frame weekly order block. We're retesting potentially. We would like to hope retest those previous daily highs as well. Sorry, that's incorrectly. That's previous daily highs, so we won't confuse anyone. Previous daily highs. Let's see if we retest those areas and then looking for that roll down short down into at least then the weekly 50 MA as a beautiful looking target. And then, of course, we're not looking for price to reject that weekly 50 MA immediately. Look for the liquidity that lies below it by way of daily order block. That also, again, I'm happy to see that this daily order block hasn't been tapped. So it's still very much so available for price to want to gravitate towards it. Then, of course, we're not going to be trading from daily order blocks. Refine that area down. Here's that 4 hour order block just here. And then if I zoom, we'll see that there isn't a 15-minute order block within that area. So hold your eyes for a moment as I zoom across. I'll just take my word for it. I won't keep your time. There isn't one here. However, there is a 15-minute order block slightly lower. So if you were going to want to stretch that short position out, that would definitely be something. If I'm able to get into that position today, I'm probably going to look to hold that into tomorrow to see if price will then look to gravitate towards that weekly 50 MA. And I think that'd be a really, really nice looking trade. So as I said, just to reaffirm, it's not the end of the world that this position was taken broken out break even. Actually, price has just developed really, really nicely. We've got those clear breaks of structure point here, broken, structure point also here, broken with a candle body closed below. So for me, EU is a very, very good looking position, almost textbook, to be honest. Textbook setup has developed. And for me, once I get that textbook type of setup developed, I'm not really too fussed about how I take the entry because it's always setup over entry. If I take a bad looking setup, then absolutely my entry criteria must be tip top because I can't take two elements of a trade that looks crappy. So I got to back myself in one way. So at least now we have a beautiful looking setup, entry criteria. If we only had one 15-minute order block, let's say up at the highs, then that would definitely be a limit type of order for me, and I'd get on with my day and probably go and play some golf or head to the beach or something like that. So that's Euro US dollar today, and it's probably going to be much of the same like GU as well. GCAD, another very nice looking position. GCAD, on the other hand, what do we have? So previous weekly candle closed bullish above that weekly 50 MA. So of course, looking for price to want to gravitate back towards that weekly 50 MA before rejection towards the upside to then close above it. And we have the confluence based on the previous candle that we should be looking for rejection to the highs. Now, with that said, I like the short position based on this element. I'm not sure if I spoke about it yesterday, but I'll definitely go into it just briefly for us today. So daily price action, I'm not really concerned about it unless it's incredibly, incredibly obvious. And what I can see here, we've had a push to the high. So this could have well been the first high, higher low, looking for a higher high continuation. What do we get? We didn't get a higher high, but in fact, we got a snap to the low, creating a break of structure point one and point two. Therefore, this could be the first low in the market for that lower high for a lower low continuation. Does that make sense then for us to be looking for a short position up here, despite us having the inclination that we're going to be closing above that weekly 50 MA? I believe so. It looks really nice. Although it is an older daily order block that we're manipulating, that's fine in my opinion because it's still a valid point of interest. We must pay careful and close attention to whether the price is closing above these points of interest and breaking them. For example, Boris, he's a bit of a veteran here. He recognizes if we're looking to speculate from a point of interest, let's call it a 15-minute order block, as soon as a candle on the 15-minute time frame closes above that 15-minute order block, we get rid of it. It doesn't mean we're no longer going to be looking to short. It just means at that point then we need to wait for our entry criteria, which will develop and provide us with a 15-minute order block to look to trade from. Or if you want to be slightly more aggressive, you can look for that break of structure from the 5-minute time frame, and then the 5-minute time frame is going to give you the 5-minute order block, providing price prints a bearish engulfing candle. So any bearish engulfing candle or any engulfing candle in any aspect will provide you with an order block to trade from. However, 15-minute order block is the foundation that I like to trade from. Hence why I don't go below the 15-minute time frame when I'm doing my chart analysis. So GCAD, long story short, looking for a short position. Again, two, in my opinion, really nice areas. Hence why, again, today, as a result of looking at DXY, I thought, maybe not. But actually, price just looks really, really nice. And it would be stupid to miss an opportunity. So first things first, we understand the daily time frame, refining that daily order block down. So we'll continue to refine that order block down as price prints away from it. So it's not just that we're using a daily order block, we are refining new price action down, starting then with the 4 hour if a new daily order block isn't available, which unfortunately it's not, as a result of there is no daily engulfing candles for us to manipulate from. Therefore, what we're going to be doing is using that 4 hour order block up at those highs to see if price is going to come to the higher time frame better point of interest. So of course, up at these highs, that for me would be the best opportunity to look for a short from, despite then the 15-minute time frame looking as if it has broken key structure points to then take the short. However, we have to understand we've got a higher time frame bias in terms of looking for the short. And then with that said, like my position that I took on GU yesterday with a sell limit, that's based on the 15-minute time frame. So with the 15-minute time frame, we can see quite clearly higher highs, higher lows, high highs, etc. And we can't be too short just yet that we've broken structure at these elements to then take a short position down. However, yesterday there could have been an opportunity. But as I posted in the groups earlier this morning, because I was focusing so heavily on EU and GU, I actually missed any opportunity that there could have been presented on GCAD. So it's a bit unfortunate, but I can't do, I mean, I'm a guy, so I can't multitask too well. Nevertheless, we now have, again, very good looking price action. So now we can definitely say we do have clear breaks of structure on that 15-minute time frame and the most basic element of price action. Lower low, lower high, lower low. It's just it's textbook. It's beautiful. Therefore, after the lower low, what are we expecting? Lower high for a lower low continuation. Now, again, it's slightly risky because we have our nice higher time frame probable point of interest from this area, and even slightly higher. If I zoom out, hold your eyes for a second, we can see right at the highs in terms of the session high that if price wants to gravitate as a result of price making a move from this area, if price wants to gravitate up to here, in my opinion, this is, again, I can only speak for myself. This is a limit order for me without any shadow of a doubt. I'm happy to take a loss on an area that has provided that move in the market. I'm happy to have my stop loss quite higher above the point of interest. It's not too big. What's that GCAD? So around about 25 pips maximum. And I'll be quite happy to take a trade like that because the risk to reward ratio is incredible, right? And that's what I talk about a lot, just managing your risk. So GCAD today, again, another nice looking pair. Certainly a favorite go. Well, not so much a favorite, but I can definitely see reasons to look to want to trade GCAD. And yeah, as price starts to gravitate up towards these areas, it's not going to be an immediate position for me today. I'm just going to wait for my entry criteria and see how that fares away. Because, as I've mentioned, I can quite understand why price would want to gravitate up towards these areas. However, just as a final parting mission on GCAD, what we can look to identify is how the most recent daily candles are acting. We are not actually testing those previous daily highs. So let's have a look at, let's say for a good example, this Monday candle, we closed bullish. We never retested that highs of that candle to the wick. Yesterday we closed bear, well, we closed bearish again. We never retested that highs of the wick. So yesterday we closed, every time I go over it, it's giving, let me move that for you. So again, yesterday's daily candle, are we going to retest the highs? I mean, if we don't retest the highs, this is the order block to trade from. If we retest the highs, and of course, I believe we're going to go up to these areas. So again, lots of opportunity today. The key movement forward is no expectation to the position itself, but just be able to manage your trading account effectively for you to be able to take these positions. So for me, already, I'm probably going to be looking at dropping my risk to 0.25 because I recognize today could be quite an active day in the markets. An active day, still, despite the analysis looking really, really nice technically, we understand that one word coming out with the DXY can blow everything out of the water. So GCAD again, nice looking setup. GJ. There's a lot of opportunity everywhere, as I keep saying. So GJ for me is a pair that is slightly new. So therefore I mean, I will trade it regardless, to be honest. It makes no difference, but it's one of those, but we'll take a look at it. So GJ, previous weekly candles, not really too important as a result of the fact that we are clearly above that weekly 50 MA. We've got a wick imbalance to the highs that we're looking to work with to the short position. However, for me, as a result of being now, if we paint the daily picture again, I'm not really inclined to monitor that daily time frame in terms of price action structure. I'm not a higher time frame trader. However, when you can see what's obvious in the market, and you really have to take note of the facts. So price wasn't breaking above these areas at all. Now price dipped down and we've had this push. And if you take the facts on board, because we're trading technical analysis, we have now closed above an area where price was failing to close above. So the way that I read that is higher high, higher low. Can we get a higher high? And why have I put my higher low in this area? Because on the daily time frame, we have had that bullish engulfing or bullish candle that allowed us to manipulate by way of order block, and then price currently is respecting it on that daily time frame. So I like it. Of course, the better case scenario would be to have a daily order block down here and then say, well, actually, price moved from that area. So there's a high, expect the high low in that direction for the higher high there. However, I'm not sure if you can see it just yet. And if you can't, it will start to make good sense. Look at the EMAs. The daily EMA is also giving us the guidance where to have a look at. So it's not only saying, well, Charles, you've just put a daily order block in the middle of nowhere. Yes, I absolutely have, but the EMAs are guiding that as well. And what we can say is as soon as price had broken above that EMA, closed above it on the daily time frame, we've just continued to respect it. Therefore, I'm going to have the mindset that the daily time frame will continue to respect that daily 50 MA. Now, and that's only relevant on the daily time frame. So, of course, if price wants to start to gravitate underneath these points of interest, that's all great news for me because I now have the belief, based on my strategy, my thought process, is that we are going to reject that daily 50 MA to the upside, at least for today. And then, of course, once price gets down to here, I'll be looking to trade into unfortunately, the most recent 4 hour candle closed bearish below that 4 hour 50 MA. Therefore, the 4 hour 50 MA is going to have to be my target for the long position. So I don't mind the long position at all. What I do mind, I must say, is this 15-minute order block. I don't like where that is. So what I'm going to need to have to do is wait for my entry criteria to present itself, which hopefully will allow price to come down to these areas, which will then give me a much better range. So what I will probably prevent me from taking this position. If I get my entry criteria here, and then I'll be looking for that long position from here, I'll be wanting to cover. Well, this is the thing as well. In an ideal scenario, I would want to have my stop loss here. I know I can't do that. It's too big. And look at my range. It's not good enough for me to risk money on that position. So therefore, what I'd really, really love to see is price come all the way back down to these session lows, then provide me with my entry criteria, and then pull back into that area. I know it's wishful thinking, but it does happen. And when you plan your positions like to this degree of, well, whatever you can call it, if it happens, that's your confidence to trade. If it doesn't, I already have my reservations that I can't take this position. So wait for my entry criteria a little bit lower. That will allow me to have the range, recognizing that price is broken currently below that 4 hour 50 MA. But it is inevitable because as you can see on the 4 hour time frame, we have now, based on that daily candle close above that area, we have now broken above, in my opinion, what was a range. We're still not necessarily out of the water from that range, hence why it is a bit of a risky position because just like we've seen on the DXY, price can print above an area, but just melt its way all the way back down to those lows, which if it does, it's just going to be one of those. We're traders. It's a risky profession. So entry criteria first and foremost, and I'll be looking potentially for a long position on GJ today. So that's GJ. Would I be interested in the shorts? Not really. Not unless we're right up at these highs, which if I press that, much better area for a short position. So I'll give myself an opportunity to take the long. If the shorts don't provide for me, then what I'll be looking really for is this point of interest, which I believe is quite significant as a result of, let's say, high, higher low, higher the market created, which confirms this higher low. Here definitely is an area where I want to be looking to take a long position from. If we then get a break of that, then a pull back into an area of interest, then I'll be looking for a rollover short. But at the moment, based on the fact that we're in that higher time frame daily order block, I'm going to say longs only until at least, and we've got a daily candle close below that daily order block. As I mentioned to the start of this call, once you get a closure on your order block on that specific time frame, that's when you can get rid of it. So until the daily candles close or one daily candle closes below that daily order block just here to the right, then I will continue to use it. So that's GJ. Again, nice looking trade. Well, nice looking chart at least. AU. Let's have a look at AU. God, AU. I really have to take this position at some stage. Well, we got it last week, but it's just not enough because the overwhelming bias is just short, short, short. And we're still yet to get that true confirmation. So I'll be quick here because it will be a bit boring if you were in the call yesterday. So weekly order block looking to go short, hence why I can't really take any long, well, not even really. I cannot take any long positions on AU at least while we are this close to that weekly order block. So that pretty much cements one direction only for me. Therefore, I am very, what's the word? I just want to take a short position because I can see it. But I have to wait for pr price to present itself for me. So that daily order block, excuse me, daily time frame, rather, bottom right hand chart is really providing all the beans. If I were to take a long position, it would be probably at some point soon. It looks good for a long scenario. It's just I can't take them personally. Nevertheless, so we've got that bullish structure here coming out of the market. We explained that yesterday and pretty much all month. Made a high from here. So, of course, looking for this area as it is now confirmed as a result of making that high. This is the higher low. So, therefore, I want to see this broken before having the confirmation for the low, lower high, lower low continuation. What we do have in favor, we have a clue at least. We have one candle that's just about closed below that daily 50 EMA. So that's good news, first and foremost. But as a result of price, of course, making that push away, if this is a low, lower high, we are now above that daily 50 EMA again, expecting the reaction, rejection, and look what we have right away. So this is why I talk about EMA so much because I just see them happening over and over and over again. And when you start to bring them into your analysis and your technical ability, it just makes things a hell of a lot easier in terms of, well, would I be looking to short now? Right there on that daily 50 MA, understanding that we could be now rejecting it already for the day. I recognize that it is a risky position, particularly on AU, despite wanting to take that. I now know that any short position I take could well be price just rejecting, or it is, in fact, just rejecting that daily 50 MA for a potential higher correction. However, I am willing to take that risk on AU because of my overwhelming bias that weekly time frame is what's guiding my position, not so much the daily. The daily is definitely a good indication of where to take that position from, i.e., if you were to say, well, Charles, would you take a short position now if you play the game with me from here on AU? I would absolutely say no, because this is where we're rejecting that daily 50 MA. Until we get a nice daily closure again below that daily 50 MA, which is going to be a development of price on the lower time frames like so, then that would be a nice area to trade from. But at the moment, we don't have that confirmation on that daily time frame. But again, what I am willing to pay close attention to is the day, excuse me, the 4 hour time frame where we haven't made a low in the a lower low. We understand that based on the daily time frame anyway. But what we do have and what we can start to work with is brand new price action. So we can say from Monday, if I move this along to double check myself, well, not quite Monday. From Monday here, we have been bearish. So therefore, in terms of new price action, we are bearish. So that's a low for the week, let's say. We'll come back up for potential lower high. Do I have a reason to understand why that could be a lower high area or just an area in general? Well, what I will say is for a very considerable amount of time, a long time rather, we haven't broken and closed above that area. Therefore, when I take a short position from there, I already have the confluence that, well, price hasn't broken and closed above. Therefore, my short position remains quite a nice position. Nevertheless, what I am seeing, unfortunately, is reasons why I could be stopped out of this position. And that's just based on manipulation. It's not something I speak about, but when I'm seeing triple tops and double tops, quadruple tops, all I see is this area as a retail trader would. And they are, well, I won't single them out, but it's so easy for them to say support and resistance. Let me take a short. It's also so easy to see large organizations that can easily, well, grab your money and i.e. do something like that. So therefore, the longer it kind of goes on, I'm not hesitant, but the more that I can't really want to take this as a limit order as I would ordinarily. Let's say if we didn't have all of this price action to the right-hand side, we just had this order block here, 4 hour made a lower low, lower high up at these highs. Absolutely, I'd take that as a limit order all day long. Nevertheless, because now price has gravitated away from that, but still hasn't really made a low from the area, for me, it's just a session high. The session high is always, I shouldn't say always, but more often than not will be manipulated in the opposite direction before then going in your direction. We've seen it happen over and over and over again in the markets, and it's just not something that I want to be part of. Therefore, I am still going to be looking to take a short from here, but it's based on entry criteria. It's not going to be an aggressive position, as aggressive as I want to be on AU, because I can just see areas here where you would see price just push up. The long buyers will then, on the term in terms of a breakout, will be excited. They'll be wicked straight back out. Price will then develop for us, giving us an entry criteria and look for the short. So that's pretty much a textbook looking type of play that we have going on. So AU, it might be one that I'm just gonna have to wait for, unfortunately. The daily candle close below this 50 MA, below this bullish structure will definitely be the better play, in my opinion. Nevertheless, we'll see how price fares up at these highs. Now, would I take an Asia range type of position here? I think based on everything that I've just said, that in itself for me should be enough to deter me away from taking that. It's difficult for me to put that aside, but it's just a little bit too risky. What we can do, you can see I've got my alerts a little bit prior that 15-minute order block. When price starts to approach it, what I will do is just head over to the DXY and see where the DXY is. If, let's say, the DXY is at this 15-minute order block and the DXY then gives me a nice looking kind of 1 minute break of structure like so, and then AU at the same point is printing, let's say, from this area, a nice looking bearish engulfing 15-minute candle like that, then perhaps I'll consider it. This 15-minute candle would also need to break 1 minute structure, which it will. Then what I'll have to do is reselect the order block, wait for price to come into the area. And again, as I mentioned today, it could be one of those days where you just have to sort of slice your risk in half and in half again into quarters to understand that today could well be a busy day. So this would be an Asia range type of position for me based on structure as well. So what we'd say is, well, lows coming out of the market, a lower high confirmed as a result of the lower low. Price comes into that lower high area looking for the Asia range to be filled. Simple as that, to be quite honest. Again, it's very attractive looking price action, and yeah, it's difficult to just head to the beach or go to the golf course today when you can see that there's money to be made. So that is AU. Am I interested in the recovery back up to those areas? As I said, I can't take long positions, so I won't discuss them. Because I would hate to suggest for you guys to take long positions when I wouldn't be taking them myself. But for anyone that is considering, I can definitely understand why you'd be looking to do so. But I think the overwhelming bias should overshadow your reason to want to take immediate long positions. So that's AU. Again, good looking chart. GU, what do we have today on GU? If it's going to load. Yeah, much like AU and EU, to be quite honest. Let's start from the top. Won't take your time for too long. So what I like, weekly 50 MA. Okay, we closed above it, so I'm expecting price to want to gravitate towards it and of course reject it to the upside to give us now another bullish weekly candle. What I like is we haven't quite hit it yet. So therefore, there is definite reason to want to continue shorting down into it. Then beyond it, take our money, leave price, and let it fly back to the upside. So that's my thought process at the moment. Anything I'm missing? There is reason for price want to gravitate low. We've got that daily order block down here on the daily time frame. We'll have a quick look at that. And where are we? Cool. So that daily order block is as a result of, again, I'm not really concerned about what's going on unless it's obvious, but what we can see is price clearly made a push from that area, broke significant structure points on the way up. And then, of course, if price wants to gravitate back towards that area, be looking for a rejection to the upside, recognizing that we are here at the moment, although the weekly 50 MA is there, you can definitely understand where price would want to gravitate towards that area before the rejection back up to to the upside. So GU short positions in my opinion look pretty good. Now we start to refine this daily order block down. We had it yesterday where we were using this 4 hour order block from that area. The price didn't get there, to be honest. I took the snap and retest on the 15-minute time frame, but nevertheless, I think both opportunities are still available for us. We've now broken, in my opinion, what would have been a key structure point in the market on the 4 hour time frame. As a result of this bearish candle, of course, it doesn't look a lot, but we've got to take the facts. As that candle closed bearish or bullish below an area in the market where I would consider price to want to reject from. It has closed bearish. Of course, we're still getting the rejection from it. It's inevitable, but it doesn't mean that I should now be the one fueling that liquidity towards the upside. It means really just understand that my setup has now been developed as a result of continued breaks of structures on that 15. I then want price to come back up to a valid point of interest to short all the way back down. And I have that confluence to short because I can see that we have had that break of structure. If we rejected this area straight away, what I'd be doing is pulling this straight across and understanding, well, actually, we're rejecting potentially, we could look for a nice looking short position. But as I've mentioned before to you guys, as soon as an order block has been broken and closed to the downside, it's my job then to get rid of it. The facts of the market is this is closed below. Therefore, I shouldn't be using that to look for a long position. So what I do, I just place it to one side, understand that it's there in principle, but it's not something that I'll be looking to use. It's just something that I'm looking to use as confirmation in the other direction to understand, well, hey, we've broken and closed below it, so I shouldn't be using it. Therefore, I'm not going to log into it, but I've got the confidence to short back down into it, where ordinarily I wouldn't have that. So now on to the 15-minute time frame. Let's make it bigger so we can all have a good look. So again, this is the area where ordinarily we'd want to say, can we take a buy from it? We're not going to be doing, I'm not going to be doing that in my opinion. However, what I am definitely inclined to do is take a very similar position like I did yesterday based on structure. I mean, if you're going to learn the basic principles of price action, isn't that it? Lower low, which broke most recent structure, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low in the market, lower high. Thank you very much, lower low. Pretty basic, right? So therefore, I'm going to revert to a bit of an Asia range setup as well as confluence, so we don't have any of the higher time frame bias to support my reason to short here in terms of order block selection. Of course, I could put an order block in there, but then I'll just be putting order blocks in for the sake of it. I can see here we have the 4 hour 50 MA supporting a short from this area. Again, I do see what I've explained earlier on, that these areas for me make it very difficult to take immediate positions. Where are we? Where are we? Like so, because I just have the thought process that price may just want to do that, then pop back down with my entry criteria, and I'll take the short. So the first and foremost, I won't be taking that as an Asia range setup, which would ordinarily just be a nice 1 minute break of structure, look for the short back down into Asia. What I will be looking for is my full type of entry criteria, because I see there are a couple of areas, in fact, a much better area up at these highs that I'd be looking to take a very aggressive short position from, because it's just the best areas based on the higher time frame analysis as well. I'm refining from daily 4 and 15. Therefore, this point of interest becomes quite a lucrative point. But nevertheless, let me have this alert slightly higher because that's going to trigger now. And I'll be looking for a short from this area and this area today. No long positions, in my opinion, unless, well, no, there's just no long positions even to be considered. It's very straightforward for me today. So that's GU. US dollar CAD. So with that said, with the thought process that I'm looking to short all the cross pairs, the biggest question in the room is, okay, well, are you going to long any primary dollar pair based on DXY strength? Unfortunately, absolutely not. I'm just going to be using US dollar CAD and UJ really for guidance that I believe the DXY could still push further higher. Unfortunately, US dollar CAD, it's just not suiting my strategy at the moment. There are just no pullbacks at all. I'm even doing a little bit too much by putting this order block in here. I've got no real right to put this order block in here because the question was then, well, why not here? Here, you'll just have 4 hour order blocks everywhere. You'll just have daily order blocks everywhere. So even that, to be quite honest, is just doing a little bit too much on this pair. So what I can see and what I will be using or doing is analyzing this. If I were to trade it, where would I short it from? And I'll use where would I short it from to help me in terms of my guidance. Where should I be looking to short, let's say, or how far could the DXY continue to move? And I believe further into this higher time frame weekly order block at least. We see the refined area on the daily also. So therefore, at least up into these highs before looking for rejection to the downside. I recognize we've approached that weekly order block, but as I mentioned, we don't trade from weekly order blocks. We refine them back down through the time frame. So look for a position. What I also like on US dollar CAD as a good guidance is if I'm thinking that the DXY could roll long-term bullish towards the upside, US dollar CAD, again, price action. I'm not concerned, but when it's obvious, you've got to take it into consideration. Price was making lower lows on the way down on US dollar CAD. For whatever reason, we had this push towards the upside, which broke most recent structure. Therefore, what I consider is this is now the high in the market. Of course, we would get price to roll back down. So there's the high. Here's the higher low back into this daily order block. And now, in my opinion, we are going to make a higher high and not even going to respect that weekly order block. So whether or not price action, well, whether or not the technicals are marked out, I think your technical overall has to overall even what the technicals are saying. So I hope that makes sense. So technically, price is telling me to short this, but nevertheless, technically, price is telling me, well, actually, higher time frame after a higher high. And you got that higher low, which is now well on its way to being created. We're understanding DXY strength to come out of the market. So should I be shorting from here immediately? The answer is no. Until I get the confirmation that we're not going to make that higher high, which could be potentially looking at US dollar CAD, a couple of days worth of price action, because what we need to really see is price start breaking these structure points. Any other position is just going to be a really aggressive short position, which I don't mind taking short aggressive positions. Took a limit order yesterday on GU, but one thing that I do have to do is have confidence and reason to take that. Currently, looking at US dollar CAD, even let's say on the 15, if we just zoom it out, I have no reason to take an immediate short position here at all until I can see some structure points broken, because this is just far too bullish to say, well, yeah, now's a good time to short. Despite, as I said, despite the technicals telling me to short, my technicals are telling me, well, not yet. So therefore, I'm just using that as a bias. So unless you're already in the long, congratulations. Again, it's just my thought process. I wouldn't short from here. Could I understand if a reaction could come from there? Of course, it's an order block refined within an area. You are more often than not going to get reactions from order blocks. That's why we place them on the market. But it doesn't mean every order block that's on the chart, I must be the one to short or take a long from it. It just means here's a time in the market we should be having a look to see what's going on. And if it makes sense technically against technicals, then we'll take a position. But currently, technically, yes. But against the technicals, absolutely not. So that's US dollar CAD for me. Where would I take a long from? Not until price comes all the way down here, I'll be quite honest. And where would I take a short from? Not until we start to break these structure points. Or I'll be a little bit more aggressive. We'll take that as a structure point. We'll take a break below, pull back up into an area of interest, highest degree of entry criteria, and then I'll look for the short. Absolutely no problem. But until I get all of that, all of this, then no shorts for me. It's just unfortunate. That's UCAD and UJ. And with that said, there's so much that we have to trade. So looking to trade a reversal on US dollar CAD without any breaks of structure, when we have everything beautifully developed on EU, even GCAD to a certain degree is not bad. GJ looks all right, AU looks all right, GU looks all right. and then we go and trade US dollar CAD. It just doesn't make sense, does it, team? So, UJ, we'll wrap this up for you guys. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. Boris, you've probably never seen numbers like this for whatever reason, so it's good to have you guys on board. Right. So UJ, cool. UJ, technicals again is a nice way to speak about it. Technicals is telling me to short, of course. Higher time frame, weekly order block. It's all looking good. Coming short out of the area, refine it down. It's looking nice. And you guys know I love to trade. If it's obvious, I'll take it. So the technicals look good for shorts. But again, just like on US dollar CAD, first and foremost, is it worth taking a short based on the fact we've got everything else? Or is it just better to try and wait for the best type of position? We'll break it down and see what we have. I won't judge it without taking a look. So US dollar JPY weekly order block, we cause a move, bearish engulfing candle, took out a month's worth of price action, order block, refine that area down. We're there now. So refine that area. Where are we? Daily order block. Okay, UJ. Yeah, this whole thing. Daily order block looking to potentially take a short out of that as a result of price of being in the range. And then where's my drawing bits? We've had that break below, of course, break of structure, pull back, look for a short. It makes sense. So far, it makes sense. I can understand it. Hmm. Yeah, maybe we'll take a short on UJ. 4 hour. Blimey, I feel like I've not gone through this, through UJ in a long time, but it's all there. 4 hour, again, range, can see it clear, break of structure, pull back. It looks good for the short. Most restrictive point of interest going to be the 4 hour 50 MA, the fact that price is respecting it beautifully. Do we have a range? Looks like we do, trading up from the better areas. I could definitely see a nice position, at least a reaction to move towards break even. It's all looking good thus far. The only thing against that is, well, it's going to take a while for price to get there, unfortunately. Where are we in terms of range? Yeah, it's a shame to miss this, miss the longs. But now, as for me personally, and even Boris, he'll remember probably you. Was it UJ or AU? Well, I think it was UJ. We had that tremendous drop, and even from down here, we were looking to capitalize on something, but just I couldn't get an entry. I must be honest with you guys. I missed out on not only the drop, which I couldn't really forecast that, but definitely the recovery. I could forecast the recovery, but I just didn't have it. That's painful. 500 pips that yeah, I'll be honest, I don't think I have a position on UJ in a very long time, which is just unfortunate. But yeah, miss the longs, potentially will wait for the shorts. Where could I take a long from? Um, for me, it's difficult. I'm in that higher time frame weekly order block. I'd be breaching a lot of, well, a lot of rules to take a long position whilst in a higher time frame order block. So it's not something that I can do. Nevertheless, I'll go for it for you guys because it would be a shame to miss out completely on everything. Where can we start? Hmm. 4 hour order blocks. Well, certainly price is not going back down here. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yeah, there's a daily imbalance there as well. So I'm going to put this in and we'll see where that comes out. Let's put that on all intervals. Cool. Yeah, nice. So that 4 hour order block, although it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, that is an imbalance of this, that, well, basically it's an order block. This bullish candle is providing us with an order block, but I haven't put that order block in, but it does definitely gives me a confidence to take a position from that area. Well, not me personally, but potentially for you guys. That order block is supported by the 4 hour 50 minute above it, so we can definitely look to understand how price would want to start to gravitate into that 4 hour 50 minute, reject it, below it slightly, and then towards the upside. We want now want to start refining this area down. And here lies the problem on UJ. Um, to take a position within this area with recognition that we have, let's say, where's my mouse? We have areas like so below. It's not the end of the world because what would happen is you'd be entering that 4 hour order block, of course, on the 4 hour time frame. And then of course this is how the 4 hour candle is going to look at that point in time. And what we'd like to assume is that by the time that 4 hour candle closes, you have rejected the 4 hour order block. You can still remain to use it. And then of course you'll be looking to trade out of that 15. So this it doesn't look too bad. The points of interest. I mean, regardless, price is going to have to move a tremendous amount. I'm going to put an alert on there, and I won't take your guys' time because I really haven't looked at UJ for, well, certainly today. But what I will have is I'll put an alert there in case there is this type of scenario that just keeps on happening, but price isn't coming back. What I mean is a break of most recent structure, pullback area, then we look for the long. Potentially we've missed it now anyway. What do we have? So structure point break. Here is the 15-minute order block in and around these areas. We've pushed in and we're getting a reaction. So for me to take a position, or for let's say to trade my strategy to take a position now that price has tapped into that area, what I'd really like to see is price break, then pull back into a new area for that long continuation. So I've got an alert. Again, UJ is unless that price gets up to those highs, I won't be taking positions anyway. And potentially down at these lows, I'll look for a position, but we'll just have to see what happens in the market. All right, team. So definitely a lot to go through today. As I said, looked at the charts, wasn't really interested. Then I thought, well, how are you going to trade on the worst kind of days and not trade on a day like today? That seems a bit stupid. So I'm definitely active today. We'll see how the cookie crumbles. Put some alerts where the DXY is likely to come back down to. Got a nice little gap there for price to want to come back and fill. Price come down to these areas and looking straight away onto the cross pairs for those short continuations. Let's face it, we've missed the recovery anyway. London's pretty much only just open. So unless you're trading Asia, then there's no position anyway. And I think getting to the charts to see price developing like that is what you want to see, to be honest. Easy type of price action. So everyone, wish you all a very good luck in your trading day ahead. Boris, most consistent. Thank you very much for joining. As
Thank
always,
you.
appreciate you. And to the rest of you guys, thank you very much for clicking the link. I appreciate your attendance. Do take care, everyone. All the very best. Ciao.